Welcome back, listeners. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Okay, so today we're heading to, well, a pretty creepy place.
Oh, this sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's called the Isla de las Muñecas,
Isla de las Muñecas.
the Island of the Dolls.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Right. Yeah, it's this island in the canals of Xochimilco near Mexico City, and it's covered, like completely covered, in these old decaying dolls. I mean, hundreds of them.
Wow, so not exactly a tropical paradise then.
Not unless your idea of paradise involves, blank eyes staring at you from every tree and every wall.
You've definitely piqued my curiosity.
Yeah, it's one of those places that's kind of hard to explain. It's unsettling for sure, but also strangely fascinating. And there's this whole legend surrounding the island, how it came to be this way.
A legend, huh?
Oh yeah, pretty dark one. But before we get into all that, I think it's important to understand the context.
Right, set the stage.
Exactly. So Xochimilco itself is pretty interesting.
Oh yeah, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, right? The floating garden.
Exactly. The Aztecs built this amazing network of canals and chinampas, these artificial islands, centuries ago.
Fascinating, and I imagine this Isla de las Muñecas is on one of these chinampas.
You got it. But instead of being a lush garden, it's become this shrine to dolls. And to understand how that happened, we need to go back and meet the man who started it all.
Okay, so who is this mysterious doll aficionado?
His name was Don Julian Santana Barrera. And his story is, well, it's a bit of a tragic one.
Tragic, yeah.
Yeah. He wasn't always an island hermit. He started out living a pretty normal life in a neighborhood in Mexico City.
Right, a regular guy.
Yeah. But he was deeply religious, became a preacher even.
Okay, and what, his preaching got him into trouble?
You could say that. His teachings weren't exactly in line with the local church doctrine. Let's just say he got kicked out.
Ouch. That's gotta sting.
Yeah, it did. He became kind of an outcast.
Yeah.
So he decided to, seek refuge, peace, and quiet on this abandoned island in Xochimilco.
Makes sense. Island life, away from the drama.
Right. But things didn't exactly stay peaceful for long.
Oh, what happened?
Well, this is where the legend really kicks in. Shortly after moving to the island, Don Julian made a disturbing discovery. He found the body of a young girl, drowned in the canal near his island.
Oh, wow. That's awful.
Yeah, it was. And it seems to have really shaken him. He was already a superstitious guy, and he became convinced that the girl's spirit was trapped on the island.
So that's where the dolls come in.
Precisely. The legend says he started hanging dolls, all over the island to appease her spirit.
To appease her spirit, like he thought the dolls would somehow make her happy.
Maybe, or at least keep her spirit from causing trouble. He also thought the dolls would protect him from other evil spirits he believed were drawn to the area because of the girl's death.
So the dolls were like what? Guardians? Protectors?
Yeah, something like that. His grief and superstition, they kind of became intertwined. He really believed these dolls, these creepy dolls, could somehow keep evil at bay.
Okay, I'm starting to get a picture of this guy.
Right. I mean, can you imagine living alone on an island surrounded by hundreds of decaying dolls?
Not really my idea of a relaxing retirement, no.
Definitely not your typical island getaway. But as you might guess, word got out about Don Julian and his unusual decorating choices.
Right, because who wouldn't want to visit an island of creepy dolls?
Well, you'd be surprised. People started showing up, drawn by curiosity, and it seems they played a pretty big role in shaping what the island became.
How so?
Well, it's kind of a bizarre twist. Instead of being creeped out, the visitors actually started bringing Don Julian more dolls.
They brought him more dolls. Why?
It's almost like they were, participating in his ritual, feeding into his beliefs.
Wow. So it became this kind of collective effort.
Exactly. And it wasn't just visitors. Locals started getting involved too.
Yeah.
Some began to view the island as a source of good luck, especially for their crops.
So it went from this personal expression of grief to this, communal thing.
Yeah, a weird mix of macabre tourism and genuine spiritual significance for some.
That's fascinating. But when did the island really start attracting attention from, the outside world?
Well, it seems like its first brush with fame, or infamy, was in 1943. It was featured in a Mexican film called Maria Candelaria.
A movie? That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that definitely put the island on the map, so to speak. And from there, the media picked up the story and, well, the rest is history.
So Isla de las Muñecas went from this hidden, creepy island to this, like, internationally known tourist destination.
Exactly.
So if someone wanted to, experience this firsthand, how would they even get there?
It's quite a journey, actually. You'd start in Xochimilco, and then you'd have to take a trachinera, one of those traditional boats, through the canals.
A boat ride through the canals? Sounds atmospheric.
It is. It takes about 90 minutes to reach the island.
90 minutes? That's a commitment.
Right. It's not exactly a quick trip. And you know what's even weirder?
What's that?
Some of the boatmen, they refuse to take people to the island.
Seriously, why?
Superstition. Some believe the island is cursed, brings bad luck.
Wow. Okay, so even getting there is an adventure.
Right. And once you're on the island, well, there's a lot more to see than just dolls.
I bet. So what else awaits our intrepid visitor?
Well, there's a whole other layer to this story, and we'll get into that right after the break.
Well, for one, there's a small museum on the island.
A museum.
Yeah, it's dedicated to, well, the island's history. It has newspaper clippings and photos and things like that.
Okay, so a bit of background on Don Julian and his project.
Exactly. And of course, there's the dolls themselves. They're everywhere, hanging from the trees, perched on the walls. It's quite a sight.
I bet. Are any of the dolls particularly noteworthy?
Well, there's one called Augustinita.
Austinita?
Yeah, she was Don Julian's favorite. And now she's, she has a special place in his old living quarters. They've turned it into part of the exhibit.
Augustinita. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty normal name for such a creepy setting.
Yeah, it is kind of strange, right? But the really interesting thing is how visitors interact with her.
How do they interact with her?
They treat her with a lot of reverence. Like, they leave her offerings and change her clothes. Some even care for her as if she were alive.
So it's not enough that the whole island is a shrine to dolls. Now there's this one doll that's like, I don't know, a saint or something.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, right? It really shows you the power of belief. How a simple doll can become so important to people.
It's kind of beautiful in a way.
I think so too. And it's not just visitors. Don Julian's family still cares for the island, adding to the collection. They see the dolls as protectors, just like he did.
It makes you wonder, what would Don Julian think about all this? His personal sanctuary becoming this tourist destination.
It's hard to say. Maybe he'd be happy seeing his beliefs validated. Or maybe he'd be, a little creeped out by the whole thing.
Yeah, I can see that. But, we've been talking a lot about the dolls and the legend, but we shouldn't forget about Xochimilco itself.
Right, the historical context.
Exactly. I mean, Xochimilco is this incredible place. The floating gardens are a testament to, the ingenuity of the Aztecs. And the Isla de las Muñecas is, well, it's part of that history, too.
It's like this collision of the ancient and the macabre.
Yeah, you've got it, this beautiful, serene landscape, and then you've got this island filled with hundreds of creepy dolls.
It's a pretty stark contrast.
Definitely. But it's also a reminder that, even in the most unexpected places, you can find these echoes of history, of culture, of the human search for meaning.
I agree, and I think that's what makes the Isla de las Muñecas so fascinating. It's more than just a collection of creepy dolls. It's a reflection of who we are, of our fears, our beliefs, our fascination with the unknown.
So for our listeners who might be thinking about visiting, what kind of experience should they expect? What's the takeaway beyond the initial shock of seeing all those dolls?
I think it's important to go in with an open mind. Don't expect easy answers or a clear narrative. Be prepared to be challenged, to be maybe even a little disturbed.
To confront the darker side of things.
Yeah, exactly. And to think about, what it all means.
To grapple with the big questions.
Exactly. Like, what happens after we die? What do we believe in? And how do we deal with the things we can't explain?
It's almost like a pilgrimage to the dark side. A place where you go to face your fears and maybe come to terms with them.
I think that's a really good way to put it. It's not a place for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
And of course, there's always that question, the one?
Is it haunted?
Exactly.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are definitely a lot of stories. People talk about, seeing dolls move or hearing strange noises at night.
Classic haunted house stuff.
Right. But is it really haunted, or is it just, people letting their imaginations run wild? I guess it depends on what you believe.
It's that mystery that keeps people coming back, right?
I think so. But even if you take the paranormal stuff out of the equation, there's still this feeling, this sense of sadness that hangs over the island.
Don Julian's grief.
His isolation, his belief in these dolls, it's all there, just below the surface.
It's kind of a heavy place, even if you don't believe in ghosts.
Yeah, it is.
So we've talked about the legend, the rituals, the history of Xochimilco. That's a lot to absorb.
It is, but that's what makes Isla de las Muñecas so interesting. It's not just one thing.
Right. It's a tourist attraction. It's a memorial. It's maybe a haunted island.
It's all of that and more.
So where does that leave us? What's the takeaway for our listeners? What should they be thinking about after hearing all of this?
Well, I think Isla de las Muñecas it's like a mirror, It shows us ourselves, our fears, our beliefs, our fascination with the things we don't understand.
It makes us confront the unknown.
Exactly. And to think about what we believe in, even if those beliefs seem, well, strange to other people.
That's a really good point. So I guess the question is, would you go to Isla de las Muñecas? Would you want to see this place for yourself? Would you want to step into that world of dolls and maybe feel a little bit of that mystery, that sense of the unknown? We'll leave you with that thought, and until next time, keep exploring the weird and wonderful corners of our world.